Welcome to the Hey Docs podcast with your host, Jill Allen. Today, I am thrilled to have Dino Watt back on the show. In this two-part episode, we will dive deep into some common challenges practices face in leadership, team building, and practice culture. And we're going to be getting Dino's top advice for transforming your team members into leaders. Plus, we'll discuss his unique doctor appreciation event blueprint for boosting referrals. These are two episodes you won't want to miss. So let's get started. By now, we all know I talk to a lot of doctors and give advice to practices in every stage of their life cycle. And one question my docs ask all the time is, who do you recommend for marketing to attract more new patients from the internet? My answer? Easy. I have been recommending Mary Kay Miller and her team at Kaleidoscope for the better part of a decade. Why? They are thorough, professional, and transparent. Kaleidoscope Digital Marketing is who you want to talk to because they understand how to market in the orthodontic world and they offer tools that are affordable and easy to use. I'm telling you, if you're looking to step up your digital presence, Kaleidoscope should be your first call. Go to contactkl.com to request your free digital marketing consultation. That's contactkl.com. Dino, I am so excited to have you on the show again. It's always such a pleasure to have my friends on here and also just somebody who's got such an influence in our industry. I know that not only do I love you, but everybody who comes in contact with you loves you. So thanks for being on the show again.
I'm super thrilled to be here. I know it's been a while, huh? We talk all the time, but it feels like it's been a while since the podcast. No, I'm excited to be here. It's so fun. Hey, docs.
So in the event that somebody out there has been under a rock and just has no idea who you are, would you mind just giving some of our audience just a little bit of history on you, who you are, and what you do in our industry?
The fastest way to find out a little bit more about me is to look up my 1983 JCPenney Cadillac spread. I know I really had a modeling career. No, I didn't. Don't look that up. I didn't have that at all. No, so I obviously we're called consultants. I do a lot of kind of name changing and things like that. I call myself a team transformation specialist. Mm-hmm. My goal is to make sure that teams and doctors are communicating at a higher level and everybody's getting along, having a good time, and we avoid the burnout, the overwhelm, and the frustration that can happen in offices. And so I spend the majority of my time talking about culture, talking about systems and processes within communication and conversation. I'd love to play with marketing a little bit inside and think differently. Like I'm really big in the world of the doctor appreciation events. I just released a blueprint about that on how to do those appropriately. I just like to be as creative as I can inside the businesses. And so if people are looking to build more team unity, which I always believe, if you take care of your team members, you're going to bring in more income because they're going to be better. It's like the Disney and the Pixar effect. And if you're looking for more culture, more team unity, more connection, more communication, and to avoid the burnout and frustration that comes all together as being a business owner, that's where I come into play.
Yeah, I love it. And one of the things since we met, gosh, I don't even know how many years ago now it's been, but that is one of the things that I have really appreciated about you is you really came into our industry and continue to hold your own space within our industry. And I just really appreciate your, I'm going to say, more outside of the box look at things. Not like that it's like something crazy, but no. I just think sometimes it's so easy within our industry for us to get in ruts, even as consultants sometimes too. You teach and you do the same thing over and over again. And what I have loved so much is that even from your speaking presence on stage, it isn't, I know that if I'm going to go watch you speak, it is going to be entertaining and I'm going to leave with a smile on my face. And I think anybody and everybody who's had that opportunity to experience that with you would say so. And with that in mind, as I've watched you through the years, and I love it that you tackle, I'm going to say not like our tried and true core positions per se, but again, taking a different angle on those. And right now, I know you're leaning a lot into leadership and team culture and just that kind of that component, which I'm going to agree with you is so important. And I think sometimes we just do not put enough
Mm-hmm.
focus on that. And so I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit to the importance of leadership. But I think sometimes we think, oh, leadership means doctor needs to be a better leader.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about that as leadership in a team, and maybe for some of our team members
Yep.
that are holding that leadership role, and what some of the maybe the problems that you see and how you're helping these people standing in that middle level management area within our practices tackle some of this, because I personally just do not feel like we have had really strong, I don't know, consulting or focus in this area, I'll
Yeah.
say, within our industry.
No, I appreciate that. When I first got in the industry, one of the things is I'd never worked in an orthodontic office before. I'm not an orthodontist. I was never a TC or a front desk. None of that. I come from a business background. And when I first got in the industry, I remember just seeing things going, why aren't we focused on this? And why are we worried about that? And everybody has their systems and processes. And I also wanted to make sure that I stayed very firmly in the lane that I knew I could do well in. Now, that didn't mean there was some crossover, right? I train TCs on sales specifically, but not on how to present a case. So there's different things there that are nuanced, but I just wanted to make sure that I was having the highest and best use of my skill set, knowing that there's other people who are really good at doing that thing in their skill set. So I don't mind cross-pollinating sometimes. Hey, I'm good at this, you're good at that. Let's work this together.
Yep.
But I'm not going to try to figure out a lane I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that being said, over the last decade, I've learned a ton and I've seen what works and what doesn't work. And so I can speak to those things, but ultimately that's not my area of genius. Where I did feel was a lack, as you said, when we talked about things like leadership and even culture, there was this kind of almost, yeah, leadership. Okay, everybody should be good leaders. What's a good leader? Somebody who's not a jerk to people, and like some generic ideas. I always considered leadership is about what everyone should be thinking about in the office, not just the person who owns the office. Yes, there is the person driving the bus. They got to know where they're going. They got to know what the end result is. I always talk about vision and focus on that for sure. But all those other people on the bus, their job is to look out for possible things that could be a challenge. They're not just there getting a free ride, or hopefully not. And I love the book, Move Your Bus, right? It makes total sense. Who are the people that are just sitting back and the riders? We need to be careful of those. So I have a phrase that I use a lot when it comes to leadership, which is leadership in embryo, that every single person in the team is a leader in embryo, meaning they're not always going to become management. They're not always going to become owners of a business. But if you as a team member look at your job as, how can I be the leader of my chair or my front office area or my supply room? If I was the leader, what would I want to have happen here? Is it going to happen every time? No. But your job is to be able to say, hey, have you ever considered this? I see this could make this faster, better, stronger for us. And that way we avoid that we're just doing things that everybody tells us to do and checking off the list. And what I found was there was a sense of, oh yeah, it's nice to talk about the soft skills, leadership, communication, culture, but really it's proficiency. It's making sure that we have great cases at the end. And really it's the hard skills. It's knowing how we have less ERs and brackets broken, and that's true, but can't they both be true? And so I come in saying pretty much around the idea that when you only focus on hard skills, the soft skills never get better. However, when you start to focus on soft skills, the hard skills always get better. And I use the joke in a lot of my speeches that it's like trying to outwork out a bad diet. I don't know about you, Jill, but there have definitely been times in my life where I've worked my butt off all week long. I went to the gym, I sweated, I did everything my trainer told me to do. I hurt at the end of and so what do? I reward myself with all the stuff I didn't eat all week long. McDonald's French fries sound amazing right now. And yeah, ice cream, sure. Listen, I was good all week. I'm going to go eat what I want this weekend. And then suddenly I'm not losing the weight and I'm not having the results I want because I'm trying to outwork out a bad diet, not realizing it starts with diet first. So to me, diet first means soft skills.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't know how to communicate, how are you going to get that person to fully understand what you need them to do? If you're a bad communicator, if you don't receive communication, how are you going to be able to execute your job as well as you should? So that's been the focus for me. And as you mentioned, I think sometimes we forget how the middle management, and I really love that word, but the people who are in charge of helping me and as a business owner get to the next level, everyone's responsible for that. But the people who are in charge of holding my feet to the fire, making sure that when I'm stressed, I'm not talking to the team in a certain way, that I still can be positive when we had a rough patient or a rough day. And so when you talk about the leads in the office, maybe a clinical lead or an admin lead, or just a practice manager in general, the support they need is really lacking in our industry. And it's unfortunate because that's a real gray area place to be as a team member, right? They don't get any financial, socioeconomic benefit of being, yes, they usually get paid a little more. But when it comes to the success of the office, they're not reaping that reward as much as the doctor and the owner is. And yet they also can't be the same as everybody else in the team because they got to be people who discipline. They got people who hand down the challenges, let somebody go. That's that role. So it's really an interesting place to be. And I think we need to support them more.
Yeah. And that's, again, I love the way your brain works and the way you look at our industry and picking that out, because you're so right in the sense that I think this has just been a gray area that just hasn't really been touched much. And I think you could say some of it has to do with, I think there's always been two fences on, do we have, and I don't love middle management either. I just don't know what we call it in our industry.
I don't either.
Director level. I don't know. But I just feel like it's been one of those, we either have it or we don't. And we aren't going to spend a lot of time there because it doesn't really help our industry or help the practice. It doesn't push our goals to invest in that area. But then on the same thought process, I think there are a lot of practices that don't see the value, or doctors that don't see the value investing in their team members. And so therefore it just follows suit, in my opinion. But what I'm wondering is, do you have maybe some advice for practices they're listening, and as all the things that you're just saying, as far as how do we, okay, that totally makes sense. You're right. I'm not doing this. How do they transfer that, I don't know, just that train of thought into transforming their leadership teams and saying, I think they're onto something here.
It's got to be, at first, it's got to be a mindset shift in the leadership itself, right? Because listen, you're dealing with, for the most part, I'm going to say 80 to 90% of our industry, these high performing individuals who, how they figured stuff out through school was they just figured it out. They put their nose to the grindstone. They studied harder. They got mentors. They spent extra time in school and classes. They don't become orthodontists because they just skipped through school and didn't really care all that much. But understand that also comes with an idea of, if I'm doing that, why do I have to teach people to do that? This should just be natural. This is what they should do. And instead of realizing you're weird, like you're a weirdo, that's not normal. I remember years ago, I had a dentist call me, and she was just complaining about her team, and finally got to her final statement, which was, why don't they just think like I do? And I said, if they did, they would have gone to dental school. So you have to first recognize you're odd in a good way. And when I say you're weird, I want you to know that's cool. I like weird. I'm weird. Jill's weird. You don't become a consultant if you aren't weird. You'd be happy just getting your paycheck every single week. So you're weird. That's okay. Now you have to recognize that there's no way you're going to hire 10, 12, 20, 50 people who think like you. Yeah. And so getting frustrated about that makes no sense. Finding solutions for that does. This comes into your next, as we will call it for our purposes here, middle management or upper management. Those are the next level people who aren't quite you, but are like you. If they had maybe the opportunities in their life, if they would have had somebody encouraging them in their life, they probably could have done that. They probably would have gone to school in that way. And so you have to find somebody who, as I say, takes complete ownership of your business while knowing they have no ownership of your business. Mm-hmm. That's a hard person to find. Yes. But when you find them, it's special. Now you have that person. You got to find people in your office who then you can encourage and love into the fact of knowing that what they're getting to do is literally changing the mind of people. The fastest way to do this is to find people who love your mission and your vision. Hint, hint, if you don't have those solidified, it's hard to get people on board, right?
Hey docs, let's talk about Smile Suite, because it's not just another scheduling system. It's a game changer in the world of new patient management. And as a proud Smile Suite partner, I've witnessed the incredible impact it has on practices of all sizes. Smile Suite means your new patient calls and web leads are expertly handled 7 days a week, even during nights and weekends. And they offer top-notch customizable presentation software and seamless post-consultation follow-up. It's like having a secret weapon for your practice's success. Curious? Dive into the revolution at getsmilesuite.com. And don't forget to mention Hey Docs to unlock some extra goodies. Elevate your practice with Smile Suite, because every smile deserves a suite of excellence. Hey docs, let's talk about consumer experience for a minute, specifically the kind of experience where you purchase an item or a service that you've been excited about only to be let down or disappointed by the actual product or experience. Not a good way to start a relationship. That's why relationships are so highly valued at GC Orthodontics, because they are truly dedicated to the orthodontic specialty. GC Orthodontics is a leading provider of TOMI orthodontic appliances, quality products that have serviced the orthodontic community for well over 50 years. They are focused on providing total solutions that include both digital and analog orthodontic treatment modalities, like brackets, indirect bonding, and clear aligners. It's time to build a long-term relationship with a company that is dedicated to delivering total solutions to your practice. Visit GC Orthodontics at www.gcamerica.com/Jill Allen and see why countless leading clinics have made the switch. Sure is. It sure is.
And this with startups,
Yep.
right? If you have people who don't have a clear mission, and making people smile better is not a mission, by the way. It's a Xerox copy of what everybody else is saying.
Yep.
But to have, let's get on board. This is what we're going to do. We're going to change all the lives in our area here that we can. Every person that comes in our office is going to be touched in a manner that makes them think, man, what was different about going to that orthodontist today, as opposed to all the other offices I went to? And find people who are on board with that. If you look at, this is the silly thing about all this conversation, is it's not a secret. You look at the offices that are being successful. What are they doing that makes a difference? What are the leaderships doing that make a difference? They're investing in leadership. They're investing in culture. They're investing in soft skills. They're investing in having our team members feel like we want them to want more in their personal lives. I'll end with this on this piece of this, because I just think it's so obvious, and I don't know why more people don't think about it. When I got in this industry, I remember looking at all these team members and thinking, isn't the fastest path to what a leader wants is to help them get more of what they want in their life, as opposed to just making them feel like, hey, I give you a paycheck. You should be happy to get your paycheck and do your job. If I owned a practice, I would spend so much more time focused on, hey, Jill, what are your goals this year? What do you want to do? I know that you and your husband were talking about you'd love to get out of your little 1-bedroom apartment and you're planning on having a family. What's your next goal? And let's put that on a board somewhere. And I want to know that, so that I let you know I know that. And I might not be able to have a direct effect, but I can have some sort of effect. Remember, I did exercise once with a team, and it always brings me back to this because it's so touching. As I do an exercise about vision boards for the team. So everybody has their vision in the office, so we all know what it is in the lunchroom. And so we were going around, and it was a smaller office, we had about 10 people. And this person said, oh, I want a BMW this year. And this person said, oh, I want to get an apartment this year. And this person said, I would love to buy a house. And lady, she's probably in her late 20s. She goes, I want a washer. And we all just stopped. And she's, yeah, that's my vision for this year, is to build up to be able to save enough money to get a washer. And we were just a washer, like to wash her clothes. And she goes, yeah, I can dry. I don't need a dryer because that's going to be more money. But I can dry my clothes outside. They lived in Arizona. She's like, no problem. I just need a washer. And everybody's, first of all, gulped. to think about, geez, we didn't even know that about her, that she doesn't have a wash. She has to go to a laundromat every week to wash her clothes. And she
Wow.
told a story about how one night there was something that was spilled on one of her scrubs, and that was what they're going to use the next day. So she had to do her clothes at midnight in a laundry room at a laundromat. Within 2 weeks, one of the other girls had a sister who was moving and didn't want to take her washer and dryer with her, and was like, hey, does anybody have need a washer and dryer? I'll just give it to you. She's able to give this girl a washer and dryer. So my point is this, is that when we know what our team members want and we can be aware of it, that creates a connection to make them want to work harder for us, make us be more dedicated to us, make us raving fans. That's the type of stuff I'm talking about, that they don't teach you that in school.
No, and gosh, Dino, I love listening to your stories because it's so much more in tune, I think, with the employees. And again, that whole culture. And I think as leaders, whether you're the doctor or you are on more of that middle management director level, I think sometimes we just get so caught up in doing the work that we forget about the emotional connection that comes along. And I get it. I think you and I would both agree. There are also extremes to the other way, where you have people that are in that role and they are so connected that it then becomes a hindrance within that role too. So, it's finding that balance. And so I'm thinking about that. I'm wondering if you might be able to speak to what actually helps build good leaders. If a doctor is, or somebody's listening and they're like, man, I just got this role and I don't know that I've got the skills, or I don't know, or a doc saying, I want to put somebody in place, but I'm not exactly sure how to identify that and then build them up. I know you're going to give us some good advice here.
Well, there's two things there, right? So as I'm a doctor, if I need to recognize that I need some leadership stuff, nothing ever comes without mentorship. I think it's the silliest thing in the world. It's not going to come from you working harder. I'll tell you that. True. It probably won't come from you buying more books, because the amount of time you have to read more books is probably pretty small. And most people, 75% of all books that ever get purchased never get read. That's not where it's going to come from. It's always going to come from mentorship. It's always going to come from reaching out and saying, hey, how do I do this? And actually, let me back up. You got to admit first that you don't know, which is really hard to do.
Oh gosh, that's so true. So true.
Man, I don't know how to communicate with people. Not how can I find more people who want to think like me? No, I don't know how to communicate with people. I don't know how to tell people what my vision is. I don't know I can't tell you how many doctors, when I talk about vision, and people's like, yeah, I know, I've been working on it forever. I just don't know how to talk about it. I don't know. I'm not sure what. Okay, first find out how to figure out your vision and your mission and what are you doing this for? Be very crystal clear on that. The more clear you are, the more people are going to be willing. The confused mind says no. So you got to think about that. The confused mind says no.
That's good.
So if you are confusing people about what you're doing besides what everybody else is doing, then it's going to be hard for everybody. You got to be clear. So first, got to be willing to admit it. Second, got to be clear. And then third is getting those mentors and people out there. And there's plenty of people. The sad part is only 20% of any industry actually asks for help, goes to seminars, goes to outside your industry even. Forget that even more. If it's industry stuff, that's only 20%. Outside your industry, learning from other specialties, other professionals about it, that's even less. So get mentorship and then be willing to go on a journey. It's not going to be overnight. It's not going to be something that you're going to be able to just go, okay, I went to that one class and I did that one thing and therefore it should work. Now that we're talking about don't do this. This drives me nuts. Don't go to a course, hire a consultant, read a book for the sake of saying you did it.
So true. So true.
Because no one cares if you did it. If you went to the course, they care if you're in action with it.
Yeah. Are you doing the work?
Are you doing the work? Like, well, I know. You've done this, Jill. How many people have you had before be like, I've tried everything? No, you haven't. You're lying. Yeah. You haven't tried everything. It's impossible to try everything.
Yep.
So the question is, what's the next thing? And by the way, the first thing, second thing, third thing, that might not be the thing. But as business owners, you're in it for the long haul. Here's something that I don't think enough people are willing to do. And I'm going to challenge people to do this. And it's going to take you to be super vulnerable. But when you don't know something like how to communicate effectively with your team or how to help them feel a certain way,
Mhm.
to be willing to say, I don't know how to do that.
Yep.
Hey, team members, I don't know how to do that, but I'm willing to learn. And
Mhm.
my job as your boss is to be willing to learn. So I'm on a mission to do that. Please give me some grace. Please
Yes.
let you know that I don't know how to do that. And it's so hard to do that. I get it. I know I have doctors listening right now being like, oh, I'm not going to tell my team I don't know anything. It's not about knowing nothing. It's about this one thing.
Yep.
And you will be shocked at the amount of people who are like, you know what? That's fair. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's and I think it's grace, right? I think what those team members I think ultimately end up doing is giving you a little bit of grace to be
Mhm.
able to say I don't know it. And I can say as a business owner, you and I both could say this, how many times do you know, as we have gone through in our lives, in our careers as entrepreneurs, we've come up against something that we didn't know how to do. And I know even for myself, and I think we've even talked about this at times, it can be so lonely when you're at the top of your business, top of when it's your own business, and it's so vulnerable sometimes to be able to speak to your peers, speak to even just recognizing that I don't know it and I don't have enough time to figure it out and I do need to tell somebody, but so freeing once you finally are able to say, I don't know it. I don't know this. And I'm going to trust somebody else through this process to help me learn it.
E- Even your spouse, even admitting that
Yes.
to your spouse is hard
Mm-hmm.
because the last thing you want to do is put another burden on them. And I know so many doctors go home and if their spouse isn't in the office with them, they unload on them and talk to them about all the stuff. And the spouse is okay, I'll be your sounding board. But to admit to be like, I don't know how to help them. I don't know how to do this. That's hard to do because you don't want them to think that I don't know. I'm going to be so stereotypical right now. I just trigger warning to everybody. I think for men, sometimes it's a lot harder to do that to their wives, to
Mm-hmm.
be able to say, I don't know what to do. I have no idea because we're supposed to know.
Mm-hmm.
I will say on that topic, what I found, and I don't know if you would agree with this, but what I found is I definitely think female doctors, female owners, when it comes to communication, when it comes to culture, when it comes to that whole vibe inside the office, have it way harder. Because for whatever reason, these doctor men, they tend to get away with a lot of maybe harsher feedback, criticism, a lot more than the female doctors do.
And it
And
being accepted and it being
yeah. Whether
accepted
if the doctor's
is,
just cranky today.
yeah.
Whereas if it's a female doctor, it's a totally different vibe and feel like you're supposed to be my friend, you're supposed to be my girlfriend. And
Mhm.
it's for a male, I'll tell you this last decade has been way eye opening because we're seeing a lot more female doctors owning practices.
Yes.
And I've just been like, man, that is not okay. Like your team members can't talk to you like that just because you're a female.
Yep.
And it's
Yep.
very interesting. I don't know. Have you found that?
I totally see it. And I have lots of discussions. I've got a fair amount of female startup docs, and that is exactly it. It is just in general a different, it's almost like they aren't on the same playing field, even though they've got in the employee's eyes a lot of
Yes.
times. And
Yeah.
I feel like, especially with our startups, we really have to even be more intentional with how we're setting things up and not letting the doctors fall into that I don't even know what the right word is, but that trap of,
That role
yeah,
of I can't be the doctor I want to be or the leader I want to be because I don't want to be looked at this way or that
yeah.
way. And man, I just and that's also a concern, right? Because then unfortunately it might make you feel like you can't ask for help because then you're going to look weak or you're going to look like you don't know what you're doing. And that's just not necessary. And it's not something that I would encourage at all. Just, geez, the more you let people know, yeah, I'm not sure about this. You want to have the confidence of a leader, but I think confident leaders surround themselves with really smart people.
Mm-hmm.
Confident
Mm-hmm.
leaders know they don't know it all, but they've got
Yeah.
some really smart team members and they have special and specific demands and visions and core values. But Yeah, that's definitely an issue I'm seeing there. When it comes to how to ID people too, to answer your question, it's a game. It is a game. And it's
So
a game
true.
that you got to be willing to say, okay, who are my team members that it just seems like every time I say we're going to do this community event or we're going to put together this event, they're the ones who are always raising their hand and saying, hey, I got you. And even if they don't know how to do it, they're willing to put themselves out there. I'm dealing with a doc right now who has a really great team, and about a year ago ended up having to let go of the practice manager who was pretty toxic. And unfortunately, the doctor had given a lot of the responsibility to this other person. And there's a difference between delegation and relegation. And there's a little bit too much relegation going on, and got to the point where she was scared to go into work because of how the office manager was going to treat her that day. Right?
Oh,
That's not good.
no.
And the office manager had so much control over things like finances and things like that. Letting the person go was a great, and boy, the pressure from the rest of the team of thank you. But now she's in this position of having to find a new person. It's been about a year and then dealing with it, trying to figure it out. And there's another team member who's really one of those people who's just like, what do you need? I'm here to help you. I got you. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do that, but I will figure it out. And now she can have that conversation about, are you looking to step up to maybe do the practice manager? Now it means she's going to have to fill in her role too. But the brilliant thing that I really was so happy to hear this team member say is, team member said, I'm so grateful you're asking me. I think that's great, but I'm not sure if I have the bandwidth or understanding of what's going to take to do that. So I just need some real clarity on what that looks like. And I got to think about it. Wow. Talk about non-ego trip, right? Talk about a person who is humble enough to say, I am grateful for this and I'm willing to. If you really need me to, I am. I just need to know exactly what that's going to look like. And so we created this plan. And the plan was, instead of bringing her completely out of this position now, why don't we do a 20%, 30%, 40%? We can gradually move it over. And when it gets to the point, if it does, where it's like, okay, that's too much, I can't do that, then we can look at, okay, now exactly what do we need to hire? And this person can go back to what they're doing and not feel like they were slighted because they never got that position or whatever. Everyone's recognizing, and that this person is the type of person who will recognize, yeah, I don't want to take that time with my family or have that much responsibility and pull back. Cool. No hard feelings, but now we know what we can do. It's just finding somebody like that. And I'm going to say something that's probably going to tick a lot of people off, but that's okay.
Let's do it. Let's hear it.
I believe the majority of your employment issues have nothing more to do with anything other than your hiring process.
I'm going to agree with that.
We are in, I don't know where we got in this industry, and I'm sure it's many industries, but definitely is, we're going to interview them on the phone. We're going to bring them in for a working interview, and then we're going to offer them a position. How many people do you marry after 3 dates, 2 dates? That to me makes no sense. Dave Ramsey has a rule it's minimum of 12 interviews before he hires anybody for the job. And he says this, and I think it's so brilliant. He says the reason why he does that is because the more you let people talk, the more they'll tell you who they are. And I get it. I know we don't have time for 12. We have to get people in there. We got to get a warm body in there, whatever it is. Good enough for now. But when you really look at it as a business owner, the amount of money that you waste on a bad hire is insane.
Yeah. What do they say? It's 20,000, 30,000 for each when you have to totally retrain somebody.
That's right.
It's
around 20,000. I've seen estimates, depending on the industry, as up to 3 times the yearly salary is how much if you hire a bad hire. This is why companies like Zappos do such a great job of, hey, we will pay you to leave if this doesn't work out within that first training period. And that's another part of it is then we bring them in. And what do? This doesn't make any sense to me. We bring somebody in. We have to train them. Let's just say they're a blank slate. We got to train them in the front office. So what are we going to do? We're going to take the person who does the best in the front office or our practice manager and have them take time to train this person. So now this person who is good at what they do, that we pay $25 an hour, their productivity drops down to minimum half because now they got to babysit this person. Instead of having processes and systems in place to give them the ability to do this on their own and then bring them in, to have, okay, I have questions. Oh, okay, I saw this thing. I did this test on this thing. I know I'm going off on another one, but like hiring process to me, I can always trace it back to hiring processes.
Yep.
Oh, you married this person after 3 interviews. No reason you didn't find out that they had this major issue in their life